I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently, a podcast where we explore the ins and outs of what becomes possible when we're willing to think, do, and show up differently to the moments of our everyday lives. Do you ever struggle to lead, be productive, perform on the job, while also staying true to yourself and doing the things that help you to be your best? Today, Kate Kordsmeier, CEO of Success with Soul, joins me to talk about how she leads her business and life. Kate is a writer and creative entrepreneur teaching women about creating success with soul. She started her first business after being diagnosed with several health conditions that led her on a natural path to healing and the creation of a blog, Root and Revel. It turned into a six-figure business. And from there, the rest of what she does was born, teaching others how to do the same through her Six-Figure Academy and Success with Soul podcast. Today, we go behind the scenes with Kate into so many topics, some of which include staying true to yourself, visibility, the uncomfortable sides of leadership, productivity and rest, and be sure to tune in to the very end to hear about how she maximizes her productivity by tuning into the natural rhythms of her body. Take a peek in the show notes to an episode when I was on Kate's podcast. We talk about time mindset and time freedom and productivity. You'll love it. Here we go. Meet Kate. Kate Kordsmeier, I'm so excited that you're here with me today. I can't wait to dive into some conversation. I know it'll be good.
Oh, thanks. Me too. I've been dying to chat ever since we chatted on my show. So it's been very exciting. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, likewise. So I would love for you to just start with kind of the story behind why you do what you do. And it was interesting, like even before this, like I learned a lot of new things about you just getting ready for this and kind of your original journey. So I'd love for you to just take us back to your kind of the catalyst behind why you do what you do and how it all started.
Yeah, I feel like there's almost two answers to this question. There's like the why I am an entrepreneur, why I decided to take this sort of career path. And then there's like why I'm doing specifically what I'm doing right now, which is part of, I think, like something bigger than just me. So the first part, I guess, is that I just can't be told what to do by anybody else, I think. I went to journalism school. I always wanted to be a freelance writer. And after college, I got scared and felt like everybody was getting real jobs and I should do that too. And so I got a job as a corporate copywriter and lasted 4 months before I fled the cube and just went out on my own. I just could not handle working in that environment. And so I started a freelance writing business and I did that for about 8 years. I was a food and travel writer for national magazines and newspapers and things that don't really exist anymore. But at the time, it was really fun and amazing. And I had this kind of dream life of getting paid to eat and travel the world. And I was, in theory, I thought I was my own boss. And in some ways I was. But in other ways, I had like 40 bosses because I was writing for somebody else and for their publication. And And so then in 2013, I moved back to Atlanta. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time and loving it. And I moved back to Atlanta. And it was this like amalgamation of so many different things happening of I was getting married and the Atlanta food scene and even just the media landscape was very different than it was in DC. And print media was dying and digital media was changing and nobody was paying anything for writers. And I was having a bunch of health issues. So it was just like so many different things kind of happening at once. And somehow it led me to decide I was going to start a blog. And so I started a blog called Root and Revel at the end of 2015. And that turned into a six-figure business in a couple years. And then it was like people asking me all the time, how are you doing this? I don't understand how blogs make money. So I launched a course teaching people how to make money blogging called the Six Figure Blog Academy. And then from there, I just sort of realized that my passion lied more in business coaching and strategy and helping other female entrepreneurs in particular create something for them. And so now that's turned into that one course has now turned into kind of a whole business where I have my own podcast and I have two other programs and a whole team of people now that work with me. And so it feels like now I actually feel like I'm a CEO or a boss, my own boss, instead of reporting to lots of different editors and stuff. I feel like I have much more freedom and control now than I ever did. So I enjoy that as a control freak.
I love that. So with the Root and Revel, did you envision that? Did you have a vision that that would be a six-figure business? Like, was that a goal, or did that just kind of evolve that way and surprise you?
I feel like a little bit of both. I always say that I very intentionally started it as a business. So it wasn't like I decided to start a hobby blog or just sort of have like a creative outlet or something. I went into it saying, this is going to be a business, but I didn't think that I would replace my journalism business with the blog. I thought it would just be part of it. Like I always said, like it was just going to be part of my freelance pie. I did a lot of different types of work, and this was just going to be one of the things. So in some ways, no, I was not surprised. It was like, yes, I set out to create a business. But in other ways, I was surprised by what it really turned out to be. I mean, then it became a multiple six-figure business. And just from blogging, I didn't sell anything. And that surprised me in some ways, even though I decided to start a blog as a business, as a revenue strategy, because I saw income reports from other bloggers where they were sharing that they were making tens of thousands of dollars a month from their blogs. So it was like, I knew it was possible, but I think there's always that little bit that's like, well, for them, but who knows if I can actually do it.
But there was something in you that kind of kept pulling you forward.
Yeah, I think the more I blogged and the more I learned about sort of the online industry and this business model, the more I wanted to do it. So a lot of it was just like it was lighting me up. I was really excited and energized by it. And the less I wanted to do journalism stuff. So after about, I don't know, 14, 15 months or so, I went full time with the blog and decided I wasn't going to freelance anymore. And I will say I was in such a privileged place because so many people have a full-time job and they want to start a blog and they have to decide like, can I do them both at the same time, or do I have to quit and dedicate all of my time? But because I was freelance, it was like, I'll just take a few less assignments per month and use that time on the blog. So I really kind of winded down and had income coming in without having to have this all or nothing, situation. So that I was very lucky to be able to do that. I know it's really hard for people when they are having to decide one or the other.
Well, and I love the idea of a bridge. I think that's how I built my business too, is having like a revenue bridge that supports you as you're growing something else, because it takes away a lot of the fear and, lack of revenue, and so that you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of pour yourself fully into this new thing. So I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely helpful. And I mean, in theory, anybody could start some kind of freelance business like that to kind of tide them over until whatever they really want to do is paying the bills enough, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I know that entrepreneurship is like some of the greatest personal development
Oh my
work
gosh.
that you could
Yeah.
sign up for. So I'm
Yes.
curious, what have been your challenges, and where have you had to really kind of grow yourself the most to step fully into what you're doing now?
Oh gosh. I feel like every week it's a new there's a new limiting belief I've realized, or there's some kind of capacity issue that I'm having. I mean, in the early days, it's a lot of the classic imposter syndrome type feelings and who am I and why would anybody care what I have to say? Or, as a blogger, it was like, why would anybody care what I have to say? Especially because it's like, I don't have credentials for any of the, like I didn't have any medical credentials if you're writing about health topics or something. And I wasn't a trained chef if you're, so there was a lot of kind of just like, oh, I don't have all this stuff. Do I need all this stuff? And then once you start wanting to actually sell things of your own, it's like, who would pay me? So there was a lot of just the typical feelings that come up like that. But as I've grown and my business has grown, and like I said, now I went from, being a solopreneur and now having multiple full-time employees on payroll, and there's a new hurdle every day. It feels like it just, starting a business is really hard. Then and you think like reaching the first six figures, that was the easiest part for me, I honestly feel like, which of course
Mhm.
at the time, I'm not saying it was easy. It felt very difficult. And like when I was in it, it felt like it was taking forever. But then looking back in hindsight, it's like, wow, that actually happened really fast.
Mm.
Um, but it's a totally different skill set than managing a team or growing your business to 1 million and all the things that come from that. So I think Lisa Fabrega is an amazing coach who teaches on capacity. And I feel like capacity is such a good word for so much of the things that have come up. Like it's your ability to receive and handle all of the things, whether it's, she has like visibility capacity and it's just the ability to be seen. Like, are you comfortable being in the spotlight and sharing your, behind the scenes or things in your personal life and connecting with people in that way? Like, are you able to really handle and receive money? And that one has been, we all think like, yeah, of course I'm ready. Bring it on, bring on the cash, but it's like, there's so much more under the surface that's happening in order to really be able to handle that.
Mm. It's so powerful. I've never thought of like visibility from a capacity issue but I love that. And I think even like receiving help, right? Like that's been something I've, you know, adding support to my business this year
Yes.
has really had me look at that, like my ability to receive help and be really well supported. And
Mm-hmm. It's
yeah.
really hard. And I think especially as women, we're so conditioned that we should be able to do it all ourselves, and that, having help is weak or means something about us as a person if we can't do it by ourselves. And so I think that has been really difficult, not only to just learn how to ask for help when I need it, but then to release control and truly delegate. And that's a whole, again, like there's all these skill sets that I feel like I think that oh sure, I could do that, I'm desperate for help, and then you get it and it's like, this is so hard, gosh. I had no idea.
That could be like a book or a program in and of itself, right? It's
Yes.
like all these things you're encountering now at this next level of your business. So, so, so important. Um,
Right.
so one of the things I know that you really stand for is staying true to yourself. And you also have a life and a family and you have young children, right? Like tell us a little bit about what does that look like and what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think it's two things. One is, staying true to myself in terms of showing up authentically as me and being okay with the fact that some people are going to hate me and some people are going to love me. And actually, that the more me I am, the more magnetic I'll become to the right people. And, it still hurts when people send you hate mail or even just tell you that they're unsubscribing, because of course they always have to let you know, like, I'm out of here. It still hurts, but sometimes I'm like, good, you weren't right. We weren't right for each other. So that's fine. So I think there's, kind of being true to yourself and just really being unapologetically who you are and being in integrity with your values and showing up that way. And so, yeah, it can be something silly. Like I curse a lot. And so I decided like, I'm not going to hold back in my, my own marketing anymore because that's not me. And I'm not the polite, quiet girl who doesn't have an opinion on things. I'm very opinionated. And so, and learning, like, again, this is another, like one of the hurdles that comes up the bigger you get is learning how to be okay with that. So there's that aspect. And then I think the second thing is being true to like what actually is important to you in your life. And it's so easy, especially, I'm such a type A workaholic, high achiever. I have a lot of stuff my worth wrapped up in my achievement and things like that, which is not great, healthy, but
A
it's
work
so
in
easy for
progress
me.
for me.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Definitely a work in progress. And it would be so easy to spend all of my time in my business. But I have a almost 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And they're more important to me, of course, than anything, and my family and my health and well-being. And I just really have decided like, what is the point of growing a business beyond just being able to pay my own bills if I hate my life, if I'm sacrificing everything else in the process. And so really figuring out a way to create a business that serves both my bank account and my soul.
It's so true. I mean, your office is in your home. You work in your home.
Yep. This is it right here. Yep.
Yeah.
It's at my
And
house. Yeah.
so it's, you said like I can work all the time, and it's so true. Like it takes real intention to like create those boundaries at home so that you are doing the things that matter too beyond your work. What has helped you do that?
Some of it is like not waiting for things to not be chaotic to do things. Like if I know that I need to move my body and that there is nothing better for my mental health than going to a yoga class. If I say, yes, I need to do that, but I'm not going to do it until XYZ project is done and things are slow, like I need more time. And that would be my excuse for a long time until I just was like, life is never going to be like that, especially with 2 toddlers at home. So I might as well just say, I'm going to yoga in the middle of the workday because I can't go, early morning with 2 babies. And I just force myself to do it and trust that what needs to get done will get done. And yeah, and just stop. I'm no longer waiting for things to like for the perfect opportunity to arise and just making that perfect opportunity.
I love that. You have to create it because otherwise, like for me, I call it the someday illusion, but like someday when things calm down or I have better systems or I'm better with my
Mhm.
time or projects calm down, then I'll do that. And that someday it's like this sneaky illusion that makes you feel hopeful, but it constantly is kind of pushed down the road and those things never happen. And I love that you said, I have to make it happen. And
Mhm.
I want to know, have you seen that by doing that, like things do get done and things are taken care of and probably like I've experienced where that time away, it gives back to my business in some shape or form. Like
Yes.
there's a blessing associated with having done that.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I could look at it from like revenue perspectives and go, actually, the months where I like take off more days are usually the months where we have the highest revenues. And
How does that happen? I've had
I know.
that
I
too.
think there is something that is like you're showing up as the best version of yourself when you're able to work from a place of rest and where you're working from a place of also taking care of yourself and your family and whatever else is important to you. And there's something like you become a vibrational match or something for what you're that abundance that you're seeking. And I've definitely seen that to be the case over and over again. And it's like a lesson I have to learn every single day. I started at the beginning of this year saying I'm going to take Fridays off. I only want to work 4 days a week. And my kids are still going to daycare on Fridays because I need a day that's just me and I don't have to work. And, maybe it's a day where I'm like catching up on chores and errands and stuff. Maybe it's a day where I'm just reading a book in bed all day. There's been lots of variations therein. But the first couple of months, I was like, I was going to take Friday off, but there's just so much to do. I really can't. And then one day I just was like, I'm doing it. I don't care if there's so much to do. There's always so much to do. I will get to it when I get back. And everything moved on as normal and maybe even better. It was like, oh, wow. We used to joke on my team that everything, we always had the most sales, like everything went the smoothest when I was out of the office. Like I just need to back away and let the magic happen.
I think that's so powerful. And there have been I can't, I think I don't know how many times I've stepped away from my business or been away, like seeing my family or on vacation. And almost every time I can think of, there was new business that was created during that time that I was away. And I think there is something to that. And, so good. It's so good. And I used to think that, I've been trying to incorporate more play in my life this year. And I think that play and productivity work really, really well together. But I had to go against this idea in my brain that it always requires working really hard all the time. And I've had to kind of, like you said, just take action that is counterintuitive to what my mind thinks. And I've seen the rewards over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I mean, there's all the studies that show that we really only have 30, maybe 35 hours a week where we can operate at optimal efficiency and functioning. And anything beyond that, you're not being productive, even though you're busy working, because you're not operating at that same level. It's like your brain isn't functioning as quickly. Your creative juices aren't flowing. Nobody, maybe occasionally, especially artistic types, creative entrepreneurs, you can get into that flow state where you're just like, oh my gosh, I just worked through the night. I was just in the zone, and that can come, but not if you're trying to do it every single day. If you're putting in 80-hour weeks, nobody's working in a state of flow putting in that much time. Everybody's fried and, your adrenals are burnt out, and it's just, it's not a healthy place, and it's not going to drive your business forward at all. And it's not going to serve you or the people in your life either.
Yeah.
But it is counterintuitive
to what we thought or how we were brought up or how our culture has taught us, that just working hard and working long hours. And, I find that I'm much more productive in shorter sprints, kind of with rest in between. And you're right. When I catch myself just kind of spinning my wheels at that afternoon hour, I'm on my computer doing things, but nothing's really happening. I've learned to recognize that and know that that's an indicator to step away, because the list doesn't end, as an entrepreneur and busy mom, and it doesn't end, and it'll be there tomorrow.
It'll be there tomorrow. And I just play with different this is what we talked a lot about with when you came on my show, is time scarcity, and that feeling of I just been playing with a lot of affirmations. I have all the time in the world, and what needs to get done will get done. And what needs to get done is very different than what we think needs to get done based on the to-do list that we create. And usually if you give yourself a couple weeks to get something done, you'll get to it and go, I don't actually need to do this.
So true. I create a lot of lists. It just helps me. It's like a parking lot for my brain to get it out of my brain and on a list. And so often I'll go back to the list and I'm like, that either didn't need to get done or it got done without me even looking at the list. And so true. So The other thing I know that you really stand for, and you talked a little bit about, is authenticity. And I'm curious, like, what has that meant for you and kind of looked like as a leader and leading a team now? And what does that look like for you?
Hmm. Great question. I do think being a great leader has been a struggle for me for sure. I think because I am such a control freak, I do struggle with really releasing it and just trusting the people to do what I hired them to do. And it's talk about counterintuitive. It's like I hired you for your brain because I know you're capable, I know you're smart, I know you can do this. I need the support, and that I still want to hold on so tightly to some of it. So that wasn't really your question, I guess, but I will just say leadership is very hard, and I think it wasn't really what I thought I would be doing even when I left corporate. It was like to start my own business. I didn't really think about the fact that if you have a truly successful business at a certain scale, you're going to have people on your team, and there's going to be more than just you doing the work. And so I feel like this is definitely an area of growth for me. One of the things that one of my mentors says is like the best way to start leading your team well is to go to therapy, because we have so much of our own stuff that we need to work out. And the worst way to do it is to work it out on your people, which I'm sure I've been guilty of. And so it's really trying to work out my own issues so that I can show up and thinking of it as more of a coaching role than as like the boss. And that it's more of coaching your people to their fullest potential and releasing that control.
Control. It is. I'm curious, like authenticity and control, like when you catch yourself, holding on too tightly or micromanaging something or whatever it is. What does authenticity look like in those moments? Like, are you learning to just kind of speak it out loud and release the control again? And your team knows that, or something that you're working through?
Yeah, I mean, I have to apologize to my team a lot, and I will sometimes just send a note and say, I'm sorry, I'm doing it again. I see that I'm doing it. I trust you. I release this to you. I fully believe that you can handle it.
Yeah.
And it's annoying to myself even because I do believe that they can handle it. It's why I hired them, right? So there is that. And I think it is just owning it and really acknowledging it is helpful. Behind the scenes, I'll stop and ask myself, what is this really about? Is this wanting just this illusion of control? Do I actually not trust them to do it? And if so, is that based in reality? Like, are they maybe just not the right person for this job? And I do think, hiring and firing is definitely a big part of leadership, and certainly when you're in a growth phase of your company. So sometimes the answer is like, we're not the right fit, and that's okay. It doesn't mean they're bad or wrong or I'm bad or wrong. It's just like not everybody is your soulmate. And so sometimes it's just releasing people when that's not the right fit. And then more often it's me saying, no, this is just me wanting to, I could just keep going back to that control word. I feel like that's the only word for it. It's like just me wanting to feel like it's weird because it's not like I think I'm the best at everything, but sometimes when you see like, oh, well, that's not how I would have done it. And so then I have to stop myself and say, okay, it's not how I would have done it, but do we get to a similar result? That's the thing that I keep asking myself. Okay, my job as the CEO, the visionary, is to say, here is the vision, here is the result I want. Now you go make it happen however you see fit. And I need to just back the F off.
Well, I like that. And I also think that what I've been bumping up against in my business is when it's your name and your
Yeah.
company, there are some things that I have tried to delegate that it's like had to learn the lesson way too many times of like, that's something you've got to do. Like that has got to be in your voice or, from your perspective. And I've been learning like what I can delegate and what I can't delegate. So sometimes it is like a letting go control issue. And sometimes it's been like, that's not the thing to let go of. You need to do that. Where sometimes in my brain, I'm like, oh, somebody could do it better. And it comes back to me again, like, no, this is something you need to do. And I
Yeah.
think it goes back to that visibility issue of like being seen and putting my voice out there and being heard. And so many
Yeah, I think
things.
it is a little bit more difficult when you run a personal brand and it like you said, it's your name, you're the face, everything that you put out, even just an Instagram post, people believe that it is you writing those things. And so if it's not in alignment with something that you would say or feel or believe, then that can feel so icky. And so yeah, as somebody who has had a large focus in content marketing over the last, since the beginning of my career, but even with the blog and now with my personal brand, Kordsmeier, we put out a lot of content. And so I think though, I would be curious, Carla, if for you, it's been like, sometimes it's because it's not the right person. Like they can't capture your voice and you may just need to try a different copywriter or, try somebody new. Sometimes it may be that it's like, yes, actually, I think this is something that is too personal to me that I really can't outsource it. But I doubt that that is truly the case most of the time. And I say that from
Yeah.
personal experience of feeling that and then finding the right fit, both in terms of somebody that I can really trust, somebody that does get my voice, gets the brand. And then when I see it, I'm like, wow, it is possible. I just, sometimes I just needed to back off and let them do their work, or sometimes I needed to find a different person.
I think you're right because I have experienced the latter that you're talking about just with a very, very part-time marketing assistant. She would make a post or take something from a blog and just tweak it a little bit and post it. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like it's amazing to have another set of hands that
Mm-hmm.
feels really aligned. So I think there's probably truth to both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the flip side, I remember one of my coaches last year said to me, don't take this the wrong way. But your emails are nicer than you are. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, you have like a boldness to you. You're a strong personality and are a little edgy and your emails are almost like like they're very sweet. And not that you're not a sweet or kind or thoughtful person, but they just don't really sound like you. And I said, well, that's interesting because I don't write my emails. Somebody else on my team writes them. And after she said that, I went back and, looked at some of the more recent ones and was like, it's good. It wasn't like it was bad writing. It just wasn't me. And so that's where that authenticity piece comes back to, where I thought, she's right. This isn't me. And so I'm probably not calling in my people because it's not me. And so I went back and rewrote all of the emails in our sales funnels and recreated everything from scratch. And it was crazy because after I did that, we got so many more replies to emails than we ever had before. We had so many more sales than we ever had before. I also got more emails from people saying unsubscribe or you should be ashamed of yourself and like ridiculous things that you're
That was
just
a
like,
good sign
wow.
too, right?
Yeah, it was actually. I'm like, okay, I think I'm doing this right. And yeah, and I think it made a huge difference. And so the lesson I learned from it wasn't necessarily like I always have to be the only one writing my copy, but it was making sure that the copy really is, it sounds like you, it's in alignment with who you are as a person. The copy that I had was in alignment with what I believed, but it wasn't me. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance here.
a lot of nuance. But I think it's like, when you water down yourself, in whatever way it's happening, there's an impact. And I love that you see that, and I see that in my business too. Like when I'm really authentic, when I'm really real, when I can write from that space, there's usually a greater response and attraction and repellent,
Mm-hmm.
when that happens. And
Yeah. Yeah, I had to put a sticky note on my computer that said be bold. And like I looked at it obviously all day because I think it was this boldness that was lacking. I'm very sarcastic, and it wasn't showing up that way in the copy itself. And I was going to say something else and I totally just lost my train of thought. This is mom brain. Something about something about boldness. Oh, it'll come back to me.
Well, I'm so excited that you have to make yourself a sticky note because, and I think it's great for people listening, like you're a badass out there. And I'm super honored that you're here on my new podcast and chatting, but I love that you have to put a reminder for yourself. And I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit because I have to remind myself often, like, this is who you are. This is what you're up to, because sometimes like overnight I can forget. And
Yes.
those downward spiraling thoughts can collect quickly and have me forget kind of what I'm doing and who I am and what I'm committed to, being and showing up. So we could talk about so many things, Kate, but I want to kind of wind us down. But being like who you are and doing all that you're doing, it looks from over here like you're doing it all. You have, a big business, a successful family. You're able to stay true to yourself. And I would love to hear like what has supported you in that? What are your daily practices if you have those, or like what helps you to sort of keep that together? And I'm sure sometimes it falls apart.
Oh, yes. I was going to say, it is definitely an illusion that I have it all together. I do not at all. It's complete chaos all the time. Um, the only thing I can think is that I don't, I might have it all, but I don't do it all. I mean, I have
Mhm.
full-time childcare,
Good
and
support.
yeah, that is huge. And I say that first because I think there are so many women that hear this like, you can have a family and a business. And so they think that they don't need childcare and they can be a stay at home mom and run a business. And I'm like, I don't know anybody that's doing that. Um, so I think I am there for my kids in a way that I couldn't be if I was in a corporate setting. If I was working for somebody else, obviously I have ultimate flexibility and control over my schedule, when I take them to school, when I pick them up, like when I take time off to be with them, all of those things that I feel like, are so much better. But I have a lot of support, and not just that they go to daycare full time, but I have my parents live nearby and they help out with the kids usually once a week. I have a cleaning crew that comes every single week and cleans our entire house top to bottom and does our laundry and puts it away, because putting it away is the hard part. And
Doesn't sit on the couch all week.
oh my gosh, it used to, or it would sit in the dryer, dry and wrinkled until the next week. And I was like, well, that was a waste. So I feel like I have a lot of support, and I have, a large team now. Well, large for me. But I have people on my team that I am able to delegate to, that can help. I have a amazing partner who I feel like we are true co-parents. Um, and yeah, I think ultimately I just have a lot of support, and most of it I pay to have, and it is worth every penny. And I recognize that it's also a privilege to have some of those things. So yeah, I think that's the illusion. If you think that anybody is like self-made millionaire, or it's not that they didn't necessarily earn their millions, but they probably didn't do it by themselves. And yeah, I wish more women knew that it's like, it does take a village, and you're not a bad mom for putting your kids in daycare, or you're not a bad CEO for working 3 days a week instead of 80 hours. And you just got to find the fit that's works for you.
Yeah. And what helps keep you mentally other than also obviously that helps keep you
Mhm.
mentally sane, but do you have any personal practices that support you in keeping, peace
Yeah.
of mind and
Yes,
sanity?
absolutely. Well, like I said, taking Fridays off has been huge for my sanity. And it, like you mentioned in the beginning too, like you have to do it with intention. It's not just like, oh, I don't work Fridays unless something comes up or I kind of feel like it or whatever. I mean, I have to force myself to not do it. And I'm not always successful, but that when I do, and when I actually give myself time for rest and play and just fun and pleasure and those things, I feel like I'm better to everyone in my life, and I'm definitely more mentally sane. Hot yoga is my
Mm.
happy place. I am so glad to be vaccinated and able to go back to the studio, because not doing it for the last year was really hard. So that's something that I make time for, usually 4 times a week or so. I'm also a big fan of cyclical living and really working in accordance with both my body and my menstrual cycle and the phases of the moon, and allowing myself that time to rest and recharge when I'm in different phases, and then knowing when's a better time for me to be visible or launch or, publish something or be live for something. And it helps so much with, like, you're not paddling upstream for everything anymore. Things just do feel easier when you're actually working with your body and your environment.
I love that. I'm such a believer in working like with your own natural rhythms. Do you
Yeah.
have a blog or something you've written or anything on that topic that we could share?
Yeah. So this is one of the key things that I teach inside my incubator program, is feminine energy and cyclical living, and sort of using this to supercharge your business, I feel like, and your life. But we do have several podcast episodes that I could point you to. We have had, I could even tell you what episode numbers they are. I I learned this. I was diagnosed with PCOS in 2014, and I first learned about cyclical living from a book called Woman Code, written by Elisa Vitti. Um, and then I went down the rabbit hole with that, and have found lots of other people teaching this kind of way of living, including Kate Northrup, who I was in her mastermind last year and read her book, Do Less. She was on episode 24 of my podcast, Success with Soul. And then also Lisa Hendrickson Jack and Vianney Lee are two women in this space doing amazing things. And they've both been on the podcast as well. Lisa was a bonus episode in between episodes 26 and 27. So if you go to episode 26, you'll find Lisa's bonus episode there. And Vianney Lee was episode 34. So those are some good starting places of just like learning more about cyclical living and working with your menstrual cycle and what the different phases mean, and how it shows up for you. And what I've found ultimately is that this is not a perfect science, and that you can only do certain things during these phases and whatever. It's more about this embodiment practice, becoming aware, and just take 90 days and every morning check in with yourself and write down, what phase of your menstrual cycle are you in? What phase of the moon? What is the phase of the moon? I'm sorry, my dog is barking in the background. I don't know if you can hear
It is
that.
okay. It is okay. We're keeping it real.
That's right. What phase of the moon is it in? And then, like, where how do you feel? What is your energy like? Do you have any symptoms coming up? Just really checking in with your body. How's your mental health? What's on your mind? What are you feeling? And just become aware of it. You don't have to change anything. Just become aware, take note. And it is amazing how much just that simple getting into our bodies can make such a huge difference.
And so over 90 days, I'm sure you start to see even some patterns of that, like when you feel most creative or when you need more rest.
Yeah, exactly. I think you start noticing patterns. And then what's really cool is that things kind of start naturally just happening that way. Like you just kind of start naturally scheduling things in a certain rhythm, and it doesn't take as much force and planning as it sounds like it might need. There's certain things that I do, like I only record my podcast around the full moon. So I have 2 days a month and I batch record because that's when I'm going to show up as my most like vibrant and alive and energetic self. And so there's some little things like that I'll do, but the rest of it sort of just ends up being like, wow, I happen to plan my 2-week vacation right at the start of my period. Isn't that nice that I can rest when I'm supposed to be resting?
Yeah, so great. I love that. So quickly, what are you excited about in your business and your life? What are you excited about right now? What's inspiring you, lighting you up?
Mm. Well, I did just launch this incubator program in March, and it is definitely lighting me up so much. I feel like I think so many of us end up creating the thing that we wish we had when we were at a certain phase. And so this is that for me. And it's just a really soulful way of doing business that really supports women's lifestyle and needs, and things that no matter how amazing your partner may or may not be, and how far we've come as a society, we still have the bulk of household and caregiving falling on women, even if you're working a full-time job as well. So creating some ways, it's kind of, I think, really where soul meets strategy. So it's coming up with the back end piece, tending to your soul, making sure that you are living in integrity with what lights you up and what feels good to you. But then also having that practical strategy piece of, okay, so how do you actually set up your business so that you can work less? And for me, it's a lot of evergreen funnels and systems and support, and looking at things from just this truly holistic perspective that I feel like is missing in so much of the coaching and courses and things that are out there right now.
So great. And we'll provide a link to all that stuff so people can check that out. And is that for bloggers or any business owner? Is it online
Yeah,
business
you do
or?
not need to be a blogger. That is I would say it's for intermediate to advanced level entrepreneurs. Like you need to already have a business. Ideally, you already have something that you sell. So it could be a course or a membership. It could even be, one-on-one services or things like that. But we're not teaching like the offer creation piece. So we're looking for people who have an existing business and are ready to really take it to that next level in a really holistic, soulful way.
Awesome. Lastly, Kate, what does doing differently mean to you?
So much of what we've just talked about, I think,
Yeah.
honestly, is just, like really doing business and life in a way that fills your soul and that feels true to who you are. Doing it in a way that is serving both yourself, but also the greater good. And again, kind of coming back to that, like needing that something bigger. And I think, unfortunately, that feels so different than what is being taught by us, particularly under, the masculine model of just hustle and grind and conquer and just strength and no vulnerability. And all of that is, it feels very different.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I am so grateful our paths have crossed, and thank you for being someone that's doing business with soul in the world.
Thank you so much, Carla. It was so fun.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.